Alright, greetings and salutations everybody. This is Rollinwolf coming at you with episode 3 of our Let's Talk Beta series. We're going to go over Ancestries in this episode and continue with our character creation episodes. The very first thing I will do is go ahead and get that community licensing taken care of. So we are creating this product. This recording was created using the Darrington Press Community Gaming License, the Illuminated Worlds Standard Resource Document, Darrington Press LLC, all rights reserved. This video is specifically talking about the Daggerheart Beta 1.5 rules that are available online at daggerheart.com. You can also find information, I'm sure, at Darrington Press. And once the full rules are due to set to come out in spring of 2025, and that will make these beta videos obsolete, and we'll be doing new updates once we've got the full materials out. But until that point, they have been very generous in allowing the community to post information about the beta product, about the beta products, and to host videos like this for gaming purposes and things like that. So let's get into the Ancestries. Ancestries are part of your heritage. The combination of ancestries and communities are what make up your heritage. The ancestry is concerned with your lineage and your character's physical appearances. Each ancestry has some kind of defaults there for the standards of that ancestry, the norms, things like that, that they fall into. And outside of that, you obviously can talk with the other folks at your table and discuss if you do have something that might fall out of those norms. Is that acceptable? Does that serve the purpose of the game? And is the difference that you're wanting to make something that's easily accommodatable? As just an example, say maybe you want to play elves that are inspired by, let's use ElfQuest for example. Their elves were very short, muscular, wild folk that had like these kind of symbiotic relationships with wolves. The book and the beta material says that elves are all tall and slender, that they're 5.5 to 6.5 feet tall, and that really doesn't fit the image of the touchstone for ElfQuest elves, that were the primary elves in that fiction. Although there were some other elven races that would have, like, I believe the sun elves were generally a little bit taller. There were some different things, but can you play an elf that is, their sub-race or would be shorter, more like in between 4 to 5 foot tall, or 3.5 to 4.5 foot, whatever you want to go with, is that acceptable? And the answer should be yes. Yes, it is acceptable. These are cosmetic choices. There is nothing that should prevent you during session 0 okaying somebody's desire to do something outside of what the established standards are in the ancestries. Once again, there shouldn't be mechanical changes necessarily. If you wanted to represent this somehow in the game, you could always do a mixed ancestry to change some things up, but I don't think that would be necessary. It's just the cosmetic choice of, okay, these types of elves are going to be shorter than the average understanding of elves in the Daggerheart Ancestries. Don't think there's anything wrong with that, and shouldn't be any impediment to the fiction that your players and you want to create whenever it's dressing and it's the flavoring. Once again, we're going back to the flavoring because that's really what it is. It's making cosmetic choices, making decisions that you want for your fiction to feel like what you want it to feel like. And Daggerheart embraces that and encourages that. So as a GM, if you are the GM, you should be doing that too. I mean, we've established the changing of mechanics is not something you should really touch, but allowing people to make these cosmetic decisions, make these choices, that should be something that should be perfectly acceptable and fine. Once again, this is easily done in session 0. When you're establishing your concept, your world, and you're building everything together, that's the time to say, okay, you want this culture, or you have this difference, and maybe, like I said, reskinning. Maybe I want to play a canine-based anthropomorphic guard. You know, this guardian that's going to be based on, you know, let's say a Rottweiler, anthropomorphic Rottweiler, or other kind of canine that's just like this big beefy dog that's loyal, or you've got this all in your head, but there's no canine race, right? So take one of the existing races, reskin it as the canines that you want to portray, the anthropomorphic canines. Nothing is wrong with that. You could go a number of races, and ancestries. I guess I should be using the word ancestries, not races, as that is the proper terminology for Daggerheart, and I will try and do so. I'm using it much more in a generalized sense of we know what we're talking about, but I digress, and will do my best to stick to the terminology that they have chosen. So ancestries are wide open and should be something that you are able to be happy with what you want to bring, the character that you want to pull forward. Reskin what's there, and you can see when you go through the beta rules and you look at the ancestries, you will see the flexibility that you have to do so, and that there's not really anything that should impede you from telling the story with the characters that you want to tell. Oh, excuse me. Ooh. Trying to decide if I'm going to sneeze or not, and my body is not certain. So we're going to press forward because the moment has passed. Mixed ancestries are something that are available for any character in the game. The Daggerheart system allows you to have, doesn't dictate what races can mate with other races, what ancestries can there's not anything that says an elf and a ribbit cannot have a child. Nothing whatsoever. You can do this however you wish in Daggerheart, and you can represent it through just natural childbirth. You can represent it through magic, other means, however you want to. The fiction is yours to decide. So there's nothing standing in your way from really making up whatever you want to, as long as you have the consensus of your table. Um, that being said, if you cannot, just simply reskin one of the options by combining and creating a mixed ancestry character. It gives you a multitude of options. And remember, whenever you are using mixed ancestry, you must take one of the top abilities and one of the bottom abilities. You can't take two tops and you can't have two bottoms. It's got to be one top ability and one bottom ability for balance purposes. Other than that, play around with it, see what you like. We are going to, and you can state that on your character in your heritage however you want to. If you're doing a mixed heritage or a mixed ancestry of, let's say a dwarf and a fungrel, right? So you could have a dwarf fungrel, or you could have a dwarf and then just fungrels in his heritage. You could have a fungrel and dwarf is in their heritage, but you're not listed as a dwarf fungrel, or you could name your mixed heritage its own thing if you want. Maybe your dwarven fungrel folk are your own thing, and you want them to have their own culture and be kind of a cross between these two. And I say culture, but really I should say ancestry, because each ancestry does not have any limitations on their cultures or the differences within that ancestry. It does not assume that the ancestries are monolithic. There's different peoples all over the mortal realm, and not every fungrel has to be the same as every other fungrel or belong to the same cultural expectations. Just like in our world, being of an ethnicity does not dictate that you are of a certain culture or anything of that. It's a complex world. A shocker. You can have more than one factor, affect who you are and how you interact with the world. So do yourself a favor and give people the freedom to kind of play what they want, and let your backgrounds and your Session Zero work establish these things in your fiction, and proceed from there. So let's get cracking on the ancestries. We are going to start with the clanks. Clanks are sentient, mechanical beings built from a variety of materials that can include metal, wood, stone, clay, resemble humanoids, animals, or even inanimate objects. And I would go as far as saying that you don't have to be mechanical so much as like what I would think of as like steampunky type gears and bits and bobs, created. You can definitely go that way, and there will be plenty of clanks that will. But you can go with mystical, magical creation. You can go with the designs where all of your bits and bobs are definitely more organic in nature, and wood and vine and things like that. The thing about clanks is that they are designed by someone, and they are designed with purpose. And it is up to the player of the clank to decide those things. Whenever you do choose to play a clank, your abilities, your features from your ancestry are one, purposeful design. That's your top ability. And what that does is you decide who you were created by and for what purpose. Whenever you go to your experiences, you will choose one of your experiences that reflects this purposeful design or your creators, and you'll get to add a +1 to that. So it will go from the base +2 that all of your experiences start out as. And you will get to bump one of those up that relates to your Clank ancestry, and you'll make it a 3 instead, to represent that purposeful design. The second or bottom ability underneath the ancestry is efficient. So whenever you take a short rest, you can substitute a long rest maneuver for one of your short rest maneuvers. And that will be something that, as we get further in and get into those, what can you do in a short rest and what can you do in a long rest, you'll see those differences. If this is a ancestry that you are considering, then I definitely advise you to go ahead and hop on over to that section and take a look and see if that is what fits for you. But as far as the way you have to look or anything about your Clank design is totally up to you as a player. You can be a totally unique one-off individual, or you can be part of a community of Clanks that were all purposefully designed by the same people, or the same ancestry, or the same whatever it was that designed you. And you, as the player, need to decide these things. But if you want to play a situation where maybe your Clank doesn't know who they were designed by, you can do that. It can be a question it could even be posed as a question in in the campaign, but there is something that you should at least discuss with your game master if you are going for something of that nature. And leaving part of that as a mystery. You should still have your design intentions. What were you made? What purpose were you made for? Even if you want to leave it a totally mystery and not know who or what designed you, you should know the purpose of your design, so that way you can reflect back on that. And if you have something outside of that, work with your game master. I know that that's going to be a big one. Is everyone's going to have a lot of freedom to really be creative. So as the game master, do what you can to support that in every fashion that you can. Only object whenever there's good reason to, and there's mechanical reason to, or if it goes against what's already been established. But if you're addressing this in session 0, then nothing really has been finalized yet, right? So that is an overview of the Clank ancestry. The next ancestry, we're just going to go down in alphabetical order. The Draconas. They resemble wingless dragons, humanoid form, and they are known for having powerful elemental breaths. Doesn't say what kind of elemental breath that you can choose, just that you have an elemental breath as your top ancestry feature is your elemental breath. You can use this breath to either target a single creature or a group of targets within very close range. Treat it as an instinct weapon, and it does D8 magic damage using your proficiency. So if your proficiency is 1, you would do 1d8. When your proficiency rises to 2, it would be 2d8. You can use, as examples, ice, fire, electricity, etc. So think of your dragon breaths, and flavor it how you want. It's going to be magic damage, so it's mechanically not going to do fire damage, it's not going to do ice damage, it's not going to do electricity damage, it's not going to do shadow damage, it's not going to do poison damage or acid damage, it's going to do magic damage. So really flavor that breath however you would like to. And then your bottom feature for the Dracona ancestry is that your natural scales increase your armor score by 1. So this is, and so you've got your breath and your scales. You are wingless. It's up to you. Doesn't really state. I would assume that most people will go with tails on their Dracana, but it doesn't say you have to. That's a cosmetic choice for you to decide. But you do not have wings. They do not have the flight ability. If you wanted to do something of that nature, then you would need to do. I would recommend like a mixed ancestry. You would need to give up your elemental breath as a top tier ability and go with, I believe, fairy. Top tier ability is the flight. I'm not 100% on that, but we can look into that. But if there is a will, there is a way to pretty much play what you want within the ancestries that are available. Would be my thoughts on it, and I'm willing to be challenged and stumped. If you are someone that is just like, I want to do this and there's no way, send it to me. Let me take a crack at it. I would love to see what we're discussing here. But that in mind, we're going to move on from Dracana and keep things going. The next is a fantasy staple. We've got dwarves, an ancestry near and dear to my own heart. I've loved dwarven character. Dwarf was my very first character in basic D&D, and I've always had a fondness for them. I think that Daggerheart gives them a very iconic treatment, and their ancestry features. Their top feature is increased fortitude. You can spend 3 hope to half your incoming physical damage. Straight up. Spend 3 hope. Dwarves are tough. Increased fortitude is a very impressive ability, and I think one that really gets to the heart of that dwarven nature of just being stubborn and indestructible. Then to double down on that, their secondary ability is thick skin. Their bottom feature. When taking minor damage, you get to roll a 1d6. On a 5+, you don't take that minor damage. So you are looking at a very tanky ancestry, and I think it does a very good job of taking some iconic traits from dwarven lore and tradition and putting them right in there. Next, we will go to our elves. As we've discussed, cosmetically, the standard elves in Daggerheart are 5'8" to about 6.5 foot tall. That is the standard. If that doesn't work for you, it is not going to blow up the world. No one's coming for you. If you want your elves to be short, if you're just old school and used to that, or you've got touchstones that you're wanting to pull from that do have shorter elves, work it out at the table. Go for it. Serve your fiction. Tell your narrative story. Don't let little things that should not impede you stop you from telling the story that you and your table want to tell. So, for the features for the elves, what do we have? We've got, for the top feature, we've got quick reactions. Basically, you get to mark down a stress to take advantage on any kind of reaction roll. So anytime a reaction roll is called for, as an elf, you can mark a stress and you get an extra d6 to add to that total. The bottom tier feature is another staple from Elven lore. is the celestial trance. That during a rest, you can drop into a trance and you get to make an extra downtime move. So during a rest, you can drop into the elven, like in D&D they call it reverie, but throughout the lore of elves, be it Middle Earth or Dungeons and Dragons or who knows how many other sources, elves have this tradition of being able to have this rest, like meditative state that they can enter into, that is more potent and allows them to be in a meditation, a trance-like state instead of just out cold sleeping. So once again, you got a traditional fantasy race, iconic, and they, I think, did a good job at giving some iconic features to the ancestry. Fairies. So fairies in Daggerheart have a very interesting and twist to them. They are they are winged. Their size varies greatly. You can go anywhere from around 2 foot tall to as big as 7 foot tall, and fairies have insectoid-like features, and are connected with the natural world, which allow them to blend in either natural plant-like features into their physical features, or insectoid-like features, or both. And that is yours to dictate how severe those are. If you want to look more like what your idea of a traditional fairy is, then you can reel in the insect-like features and focus more on the nature-like aspects. If you would like, if you want to go full on, like how Travis did with his wizard and be full on Beetle Boy, doing magic, and that's acceptable too, and anywhere in between. Yeah, so so the features that they have, their top feature is their wings. Straight up, you can fly. While you're flying, you can mark a stress before an adversary's attack roll to increase your evasion by 2 against that attack. That is the top tier ability, or top tier feature. The bottom feature is Luck Bender, which once per session, after you or an ally that's within close range of you make an action roll, you can spend 3 hope and allow a reroll of the duality dice. The new roll must be taken, for better or for worse. But basically, you can use your fairy nature to put a little bit of mojo out and allow that roll to be re-rolled. Luck Bender, it's a very nice feature, very good fairy feel to it. From fairy, we go to fawn. Fawns resemble goats in humanoid form with curving horns, satyrs, cloven hooves, like their ancestry. Appearance, like any ancestry, your appearance can vary wildly. Most of the time, when you think of Bonzo, you're going to have that goat or deer-like, lower torso with the cloven hooves, and your upper torso is going to be more humanoid looking. Although if you want to have fur all over your body, that's perfectly acceptable. You want to look more like a sheep or a deer than a goat, that's perfectly acceptable. You can always reskin the races, as we know. What can you do with what are the ancestry features for the fawn? Your top feature is going to be leap. Easily leap up to close range across gaps or chasms without making an agility roll. So that's anything close range, roughly 30 foot, you're making without a roll. You want to hop over there, you just do it, right? You don't roll as a fawn to jump 30 feet. You just do it. Where are you going to start making rolls? Above 30 feet, right? You want to leap 45 feet across a wide chasm, that's going to be a roll. But a 30-foot gap, that would be treacherous for probably most of your fellow companions not with the fawn ancestry. You're not rolling. You're just doing. And that right there, use that to inform the kind of things that you should be thinking about as far as letting people shine at the things that they're meant to do. The bottom feature is kick. On a successful melee attack, you can mark a stress, and you get to kick yourself off of the target. And what you get to do is you get to add 2d6 of damage and either push them away, or you get to push yourself out of melee range. So either you can push them out of melee range with the kick, or you can push yourself out of melee range with the kick. You mark 1 stress for doing so, 2 extra damage. Or 2d6 extra damage. My apologies. Next is furbolgs. Furbolgs represent cows in humanoid's form. I would also say that any other large herd animal could easily fall into a furbolg ancestry, as well as other. I think that, well, look, the ancestry features. The top feature is natural calm. Whenever you should mark a stress, you roll a d6. On a result of a 6, you don't have to mark that stress. You are one chill cookie. You are a cool cucumber. And your bottom feature is the charge maneuver. When you succeed on an agility roll to move from far or very far range into melee with 1 or more targets, you can mark a stress to deal 1d12 physical damage to all targets that you choose. And that's a pretty potent little move right there that I like, that has a lot of flavor to it. And it works very well for any kind of large herd animal, I would say. If you want to go with that route, and there's even in the lore of the furbolg, in the ancestry, in the beta, it says that some furbolg can have full-on cow heads and are considered to be minotaurs. They're still furbolgs mechanically. In the lore, they could be a totally separate ancestry, but mechanically they're furbolgs. Or they could be, the same. That's for you to decide in the lore. But I do encourage you to once again let people have the freedom to make those flavoring choices as they see fit. You guys will get sick of me advocating for flavoring your game, I'm sure. So from there, we're going to move to the fungal. These are the mushroom folk. They are very, very cool ancestry. Much like the fairies, there's a wide range of physical acknowledgement to the diversity of the ancestry. Their top tier ability, their top tier feature, is the fungal network. They can make an instinct roll with a DC of 12 to basically communicate with others of their ancestry across any distance using the mycelial array, the interconnected network that runs throughout the realm, the mortal realm, and allows fungals to communicate with each other. That is pretty freaking epic. Very cool, interesting ability. Their bottom feature is a death connection. When touching a corpse that died recently, you can mark a stress to extract one memory related to a specific emotion or sensation. So this gives them a bit of that whole bridging the gap between life and death, kind of the fungal nature of their ancestry. I think it's very cool. It's got a lot of good flavor to it. Interesting choice. Moving right along, after fungal, we've got another great ancestry, which I gotta say, I like all the ancestries. There's none of them are bad. Galapagos, turtle power. So, anthropomorphic turtles, 4 to 6 feet in height is the standard. You can go cosmetically all kinds of directions with this. Your top tiered feature is the shell of protection. Gives you a natural shield. You get to add your proficiency to your armor score. So, living in a shell, as your proficiency rises and gets better, you get to add that bonus to your armor score, which is pretty freaking cool. Your bottom tiered ability is the slow and steady. During combat, you can make an attack roll with advantage by placing an additional token on the action tracker. So basically, whenever you go, you're representing that slow and steady pace of a turtle, that deliberateness of your actions requires you to put extra tokens onto the action tracker, which is going to allow your storyteller to have more actions to pull off when it comes time, but you're getting to roll at advantage, at will, anytime you choose to make this option. So that is all of these choices are very flavorful and meaningful. So it'll be very interesting to see what ancestries people choose to play and how they choose to use these features. And I'm sure you're gonna, just like me, run into all kinds of creative uses, and you'll have surprises, I'm sure, but embrace it. Figure it out. It can be done. Giants very tall. They state that generally they can have anywhere from 1 to 3 eyes. So you've got your Cyclops giants baked in, as well as the 3-eyed from different lore across the world. There's plenty of 3-eyed giants. Now this one says minimum height should be 6.5 foot. Largest height around 8.5 foot. So that's about where you should stick to. If someone wants to be a little bit taller, I would not. I almost think 6.5 is like too short. But that's not my decision to make. It's in the lore. It's there, available for whoever wants to play it. It says this is acceptable, and that's for you to decide. At the table, if you don't want to go with the standard, but cosmetically, I don't think there's any issue with letting someone be a little bit taller than 8.5 foot. You want to play a runt of a giant at 6.5 foot? Go ahead. The features for giant, endurance. You gain an additional hit point slot at character creation. That's just automatically, you're getting an additional hit point more than anyone else from the jump. And then your bottom tier is the reach. You treat any weapon, class feature, ability, or spell that has melee range as though it had a very close range. So you're going from melee, which is roughly 5 foot right up in it, to very close, which is roughly 10-15 foot out, is considered very close. And then close is what's beyond very close to 30-ish foot. And then from close, you've got far, which I'm not going to make the error right now and guess at it because I don't have it on the top of my head, but I want to say that, no, I'm not going to, we'll leave it at that. I don't want to give y'all bad information and y'all take it forward as if it's gospel. So we'll come back to the distances. But just know that you can treat all melee features, weapons, abilities, and spells as if they have a range of very close instead. It's pretty nice. Goblins, another iconic fantasy race. Your goblins are there's features for goblins, descriptions, as with all Ancestries. You can flavor these up however you like. Ancestry features. Danger Sense is their top tier. Once per short rest, you can mark a stress to make an adversary re-roll an attack against you or an ally within very close range of you. Because your danger senses as a goblin of being alert and, I don't know, I think Chihuahua syndrome, just squirrel, something that's very on edge and used to being the target of bigger things, nastier things, a prey instinct sort of type situation. You've got danger sense, and then your bottom tier is sure-footed. You get to ignore disadvantage on agility rolls. Period. That's all there is to that. So, I am sure that there will be plenty of goblins in plenty of campaigns. But I do feel that those are very good choices for the features for that ancestry. They're iconic. They feel appropriate. From there, we go to another iconic fantasy race, the halflings. Your ancestry features for halflings. Your top feature is the youthful spirit. At the beginning of each session, you get to give everyone in your party a hope. So everybody gets to start out with an additional hope every session just by your lovely presence as a halfling. The eternal wellspring of hope that is the halfling spirit. And then your bottom tier is a little lucky. When you roll a 1 on your hope dice, you can re-roll it. You must take the new result. But always have that opportunity when you're rolling hope. You hit that 1. You as a halfling get to do a little lucky and re-roll that and try again. Notice it says and must take the new result, even if it's a 1. So regardless, you roll that 1, you got to take that new result. You can't continuously roll the 1s until it's not a 1 anymore. Little lucky, not absolutely lucky. Alright, we come to the humans. Humans, ancestry features, their top feature is high stamina. You get to take an additional stress slot at character creation. This is a very useful thing. You will be spending stress on countless things, and it can also be something that can readily be taken from you to represent fear, situations, things that that could cause you turmoil, could easily cost you stress. So having an additional stress slot at character creation is a pretty nice feature. I think it works well. Their bottom tier feature is adaptability. When you fail a roll that utilizes one of your experiences, you can mark a stress and you can re-roll it. You take the new result, but if you are going off of a roll that has utilized one of your experiences, you can mark a stress and re-roll that roll. I think that's a pretty good representation of the diversity of humanity for the ancestry. Next, we move on to Infernus. These are your descendants of the fallen. Their traits for their ancestry, their top feature is fearless. Whenever you roll with fear, you can mark 2 stress to make it a roll with hope instead. Just straight up. Whenever you roll with fear, you can mark 2 stress and it becomes a roll with hope. Pretty impressive. Your bottom tier ability is Dread Visage. You have advantage on rolls to intimidate a hostile target. Why? You're descended from the fallen, the circles below. Whether you are associated with them at all or have any abilities linking to them, that no longer matters. When you want to intimidate a hostile target, you can call upon your infernal nature, your Infernus nature, and bring that to the fore and get that extra d6 on that intimidation roll. Next, we have the Qatari. The Qatari are going to be your anthropomorphic feline creatures, your humanoids. They can, to the amount of anthropomorphizing, that's your call. They can have a very, similar to human features with, more anime style cat ears and a tail, or be full on, anthropomorphic cat. Or somewhere in between, much like the Thundercats, as an example. The features for this ancestry are going to be your feline instincts. When you make an agility roll, you can mark a stress to re-roll your hope die. You must take the new result. And then your bottom feature is retracting claws. You can make an agility roll to scratch a target in melee range. On a success, they become vulnerable. So it imposes vulnerability onto them that then the game master will have to get rid of somehow. And until then, they are vulnerable because you, as a Qatari, just the old cat scratch fever. From there, we go into the iconic orcs. Which we all understand what orcs are. The Ancestry feature is sturdy. When their top feature, I should say, is sturdy. When you have 1 hit point remaining, your armor score is doubled. So whenever you're only rocking 1 hit point, your armor counts as double. So this is kind of almost more to inspire to take those hits from time to time before you use up all your armor slots. And an orc is not afraid to bleed, evidently, and that's what they're getting across here. Their bottom tiered ability is Tusks. After making a successful melee attack, you can spend a hope to also gore the target with your tusk, adding 1d6 to the damage roll. Very, very nice little additional extra bite out of your hostile adversaries. By spending a hope, no additional roll needed. You just get to spend a hope and roll that extra damage. From orcs, we move to the ribbits, anthropomorphic frogs. There's a diverse number of frogs in the real world. I'm sure there will be a diverse amount of ribbits in the in the mortal realm. Their features are, for their top feature, they have a long tongue. You can use your long tongue to grab onto things, manipulate things close to you. You can also mark a stress to unleash it as a finesse close weapon that does D12 physical damage using your proficiency. So that's pretty potent. It does cost you a stress to invoke it as a weapon in this fashion, but pretty impressive. And then you also have, for their bottom tier, amphibious, which allows you to breathe and move underwater just as easily as you do so on land. Excellent abilities. We can go into the versatility of the potential of reskinning that ancestry for other races. That top ability, you could take that as your top ability to represent several different types of things. My go-to and my first thought is making a mixed ancestry anthropomorphic elephant character. You could use the long tongue to represent the trunk of an elephant. And I think that would be a pretty interesting reskinning. Obviously, and you could just wholeheartedly keep the amphibious and represent that as the tip of your trunk being up above out of the water, so that way you can continue to breathe and move. But that would require some, because you're not changing the mechanics of it, you need to also keep in mind that you would be storing up that air if you're going deeper under and want to maintain staying underwater. So you may want to, for a more elephant feel, get rid of the bottom tiered amphibious and take something that would represent maybe more of a big bulky race, or perhaps the Furbolg's charge would be appropriate. The options are there. Play around with them. That was just something that I had considered and came up with relatively quickly after seeing the Ribbit ancestry. From Ribbits, we go to the Simia. These are your anthropomorphic monkeys, primates. They have long limbs, prehensile feet, and you can size them and depict whatever type of primate you want to, whether it's a tiny marmoset or lemur, all the way up to the biggest, gorilla you can imagine. Their ancestry features for the top tier are nimble, allowing you to increase your evasion by a +1 at character creation. Pretty impressive. And then for your bottom tier, you've got natural climber. You have advantage on agility rolls that involve balancing and climbing. And that brings us to that is our last ancestry. Beyond that, you've got your mixed ancestries. If there's anything that you would like to know as far as how would I X, Y, or Z, send me a message. I'll be happy to look into it. I am sure that something will come along probably that will stump me, but I will do my best to assist anyone who has an idea for an ancestry but doesn't quite know how to get there. I'd be happy to help you out. But that's Rollinwolf for this evening. I will be coming back at you after we get this uploaded to YouTube with a community episode where we're gonna finish out the heritages and get that community episode out this evening, so that way we're knocking that out, and then once we've done that, we'll see how long that one goes and see if we're going to get into those classes tonight or if we're going to do a day of classes tomorrow. Either way, the goal is to have all the episodes that you need for character creation up by the end of this weekend. Saturday evening here locally for me. We're looking at we're actually getting close to midnight, and then we've got all day tomorrow, and to get it knocked out. So I don't think that will be an issue. Just got to stay on target and focused. As long as no outside forces come up, we shouldn't have any issue. We'll be back at you here after a bit with the community episode. Be kind to people out there. If you have the opportunity to make someone else's day better, please do so. We could all use a little bit more grace and patience in the world and a little bit more light. So make the world a better place, even if it's just with a smile for somebody. Till next episode, this is Rollinwolf signing off.